Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us here on our first Daytona community hours. This hopefully will be a recurring format that will happen each week as it currently stands on Wednesdays, 4 p.m. Central European time, I think. The aim of these office hours is to just go over the past couple of releases of Daytona that happened in the last week, to go over something that we're working on, what's planned for the next few releases, a couple of contributor highlights from some new contributors or those that contributed in the past week. And lastly, to have an open floor for all of you for questions and for maybe some discussions you want to talk about Daytona itself or anything similar. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube later, but this is all happening live via Google Meet. We share a link on our socials for this recurring event, and you can chime in, take a listen live, or maybe even contribute to the conversation while it's going on. All the relevant information will also be a part of the event itself, the meeting notes that are shared after the meeting, and also all the links relevant will be in the description down below. Okay, so we can start off. I'll just quickly share my screen. One sec, let me just find the right screen. Of course, if you're joining us live, if at any point you have any questions, feel free to just jump in, chime in, and we can stop at any point. So now let me just maybe up the font here. The first section of this office hours is intended to be just an overview of the past couple of releases that happened in Daytona. But since this was the first, we might do a bit of a deeper dive into some of the most important features that we made in the past couple of weeks. And then we'll do kind of a demo, some demo showcases of the PRs or the commits that happened in the past few days. So as you might know, the latest release of Daytona that was released last Friday was version 0.18.0. And as you can see, this release included a couple of features, including builder image configuration that was made by me, where we added a new command into the CLI called Daytona docs. This was actually made by our newest colleague, Luca. You might have seen him around GitHub lately, and he's here to contribute even more. Then we have just a simple feature to generate our CLI docs in YAML. Before this change, we only generated them in Markdown, but now with YAML, we have a bit more flexibility on how we can output this CLI, and that is generally used by our docs repository. And also the last feature of this release was the ability to delete multiple workspaces. This issue has been actually requested a few weeks ago, and we actually gave out a bounty, and that was solved by a contributor. And of course, I'll say this a couple of times, probably excuse me if I butcher these GitHub handles, but I assume it's Shashank 40. This actually is just what seems like a simple UI tweak that allows user to select multiple workspaces from the UI is actually very important for the user experience, but it is also something that included a lot of effort into making work for the terminal interface. And then a couple of fixes, which are about the improving the provider installation process, fixing the profile remove command, because we introduced a small bug a couple of releases ago that prevented users from actually removing remote profiles. Then we actually included a fix for stopping the server before upgrading. This fix actually includes a fix to our installation script that you might notice in our README file of the repository. It essentially just checks if the Daytona is running in server or daemon mode, and then stops it or asks the user if they want to stop it before upgrading the binary. Then we introduced a fix for some builder image default values, nothing really special there, and also a fix for hiding the registry password from the API response. This was just a small, let's say, quality of life change that completely hides the password from any API calls that come for your registry credentials. So the password is not accessible outside of the Daytona server. And lastly, the last section is just some chores or tests. This section generally covers some small refactors around code, or maybe contributing some test files or chores around the repo. This generally doesn't affect any user experience outside of the code base itself. And also, probably the most important section about this entire changelog is the breaking changes. This section just walks through the breaking changes and which PR caused them, and basically tells users what they need to do to comply with the breaking changes and to ensure smooth operation with the binary itself. So generally, it's always a good idea when we publish a new release to take a note of the breaking changes and then quickly apply them after upgrading the binary itself. Also, as you can see here, we had a couple of new contributors in this release. And again, sorry for butchering the GitHub handle probably. It's Abhishek, who made his first contribution on fixing the profile remove command, and Shashank, I guess, who made the contribution for the ability to delete multiple workspaces. So maybe let's jump in a small demo of these changes. I'll just leave this as is side by side for you to actually let's actually maybe make this a bit smaller like this. Okay. And let's. I'm sorry for the interruption. Okay, so starting off, let's maybe start with the simplest one to demo, which is the Daytona docs command. It's just simply running Daytona docs, and we automatically open up your default browser, or you can actually open up the link from the terminal itself. This is, again, a small quality of life improvement, but it makes it much easier to to navigate to the Daytona documentation for any help you might need for working with the binary itself. And that was Daytona docs, or maybe you can take a look at the builder image configuration. So to intro this demo, maybe we can spend a couple of minutes actually talking about what the builder image is and what generally Daytona builders are. So if you'll notice in the release before this, which was Daytona 0.17.0, we had a major update. This section generally in our releases outlines really major updates, something that changes the way you interact with Daytona. And in this case, that was Project Builders, which was contributed by our CTO, Vedran Jukic. He essentially, I mean, not only himself, but a lot of us worked on the project itself. It was really a big effort to push this release. It allows you to actually build projects using one of the available builders before they are created as projects in Daytona. And in this first update, this first builder release, the first one available is the dev container builder, which means that now Daytona can build your dev container configuration before creating the project, giving you that dev container to work in, which goes in favor of standardizing your development environment and using Daytona as a tool to do so. So this change, actually, let's first start the Daytona server. I like to start it with serve in the foreground just to keep an eye out on the logs while I'm working, but you can also run it as daemon in daemon mode as well. So the project builders change includes a change in the creation flow. So for example, if I take github.com Daytona.io Daytona If I take our repository as an example here to create a workspace, when I go to the workspace name screen, you'll see I have an option to choose F10 as the advanced configuration option. And then from there, I can enter the advanced configuration and then choose a build configuration. Here you can choose from a number of options, which is the automatic option. This option is the, let's say, default one and most flexible. This option gives Daytona the freedom to choose a builder that's most appropriate for your project. So in this case, if we detect that your project has a dev container configuration, we will use the dev container builder. Okay, this is warp dying on me. Let's try again. If it fails again, we'll move out of warp. F10. Okay, we're good. Then I can choose dev container, which says explicitly I want to choose dev container as my builder, or we can choose a custom image if we want to create a project from a custom image that I've built myself. Or we can choose none and just use the default image that Daytona that we have set up on the Daytona server, and skip the builder altogether. So let's say we choose automatic, we go with the defaults. We can also edit the post start commands, for example, but let's just leave it at that. And we can choose the workspace name, let's say Daytona, which is the default for now. And now, as I said, with this update, what we'll do, actually, it seems we'll fail to build the Daytona project, but we'll just try again, because this, I know exactly what's the problem here. We'll just ignore it for a sec. Let's try to create another project. And let's do it with the local target. So as I said, if everything goes correctly this time, it seems not okay. We'll take a look at this shortly, but what the general idea of this is, we will first, and why does this fail, is because we try to detect the configuration, and then we try to create the build configuration from the dev container configuration that your repository has, and then we create the project container and allow you to enter it with the CLI or via the editor itself. And that was the, let's say, major update of 0.17.0. As you can see, we obviously have a few things to iron out. But as we progress, the idea here with these builders is to contribute more and more builders, for example, for Nix, for dev file, or for any other configuration standard out there, and for Daytona to serve essentially as just a CLI that you use to paste your repo there, and then we take care of the rest, no matter which format you use as your configuration standard. Now, moving back again to 18 to just finish up these features, and then maybe we can take a look again at the 0.17 with the rest of the updates. I wanted to mention the builder image configuration, because the builder process uses one container image, which then executes the builder process inside of it. And then that option should be configurable by the user, and that option is now configurable by the user with Daytona server configure. If you skip over the few options, let's skip over all of this. You see you have the builder image here, and the builder image can be configured by the user themselves. So for example, I can do Daytona IO workspace project. And the important thing here is that the image dependencies are Docker and dev container CLI, which is just a node package. We'll also have more info about this in our docs. I'm not sure if we filled the entry, if I'm honest, but if we didn't, we'll fill it up ASAP. And then we want you to, as the user, to configure all of this, and then maybe create your own image for building your own build configurations. Let's just enter this, and then what's important when you change the configuration, you want to restart the server. Let's do Daytona serve, and we should be good to go. Okay. And then what we have is from the 0.18.0 update, as I said, generate YAML docs, not really important for the operation of the binary itself. And then ability to delete multiple workspaces, something that might be actually useful to me here. So if you run Daytona rm remove, delete, or any other similar alias, you'll notice that you can now see a footer that says press X to mark workspace for deletion, or press enter to delete the current or marked workspaces. This means that if I press X here, you'll see that it adds Daytona to the deletion list. And now I can add the second workspace as well, press enter, and both of these workspaces will be up for deletion, and I can just confirm, and we're good to go. Nothing. It's not a major issue that not a major issue, but a real quality of life and user experience boost to the deletion process. Also, maybe what's worthwhile from the last week release was from the 0.17.0, sorry, is the ask user to remove workspaces when removing a target. And that was actually from our newest contributor from last week, which was Mobily Trent. This is, again, a quality of life improvement because, as you might know, Daytona has targets that you can use to, let's say, deploy workspaces to different machines, depending on the provider. And then when you remove the, I'm not going to do this right now, but when you remove the target of your choice, we will now ask you, do you want to delete workspaces of that target? Because once you delete the target, you might get disconnected from those resources and you might not be able to delete them at a later stage. And this is something that that is, again, a quality of life improvement and just a UX boost to our CLI as well. Then we have mounting volumes to project containers. Nothing really, again, nothing really special that should concern the user here. Get provider required scopes. This is, again, a quality of life improvement by our colleague Ivan, which is when you run Daytona, get provider, add, get providers, I think, add, and say GitHub, for example, you'll see that every one of them now has the required scopes here, which makes it easier to target the exact scopes for the token that goes into the Git providers. Then we have CLI docs generation command. This is, again, tied to our documentation that allows us to create references to our CLI in our docs page. Then we have multi-project create not working fix by Tarun, I think. Tarun has actually been one of the most active contributors in the past couple of weeks. They tend to solve bounties, but also contribute to some non-bounty issues, which we really appreciate, of course. And this was just a simple fix for enabling the multi-project workflow, because, as you might know, you can actually create a workspace with multiple projects with the Daytona create multi-project flag, and then you can input multiple repositories for one workspace inside Daytona. Then a couple of fixes as well: store project and workspace API keys in the database. This was actually a small bug, nothing major there. Then get provider delete view, again, small terminal UI fixes. Project order numbering, this was just a simple fix for the numbering in the multi-project Daytona create view. Server daemon fails, again, small improvement to our server daemon. And then disable docs auto gen tag. This is, again, this was actually related to the feature of generating CLI docs, which just removes the timestamp from the docs themselves. Regarding the chores and tests, workspace project image fixes. This was something regarding our Daytona IO workspace project Docker image, because, as you might know, this Docker image is used as a default for creating projects in Daytona. We updated our Slack link in the README which you can also access via the short link, which I'll post down below in the description because I don't know it by heart. And then you can join our Slack where we post all the updates about Daytona, and also have discussions about the issues, or maybe if you need some help regarding Daytona, you can always chat with us directly. Also, some small refactor. Oh, okay, great. I have the Slack link from our CEO. I'll just open it right here. It's godaytona.io.slack. So, and that will redirect it to our Slack community. But as I said, we'll have it posted in the description as well. Also, some small refactors to the API client package, nothing again affecting the CLI usage as well. And again, we have the breaking changes section, which should be noted by all users upgrading to 0.17.0 and then applying that fix to ensure smooth operation going forward. So that was the last, let's say, 2 releases. I wouldn't go down anymore because we would spend most of the time just going through what we've done. But maybe it's now time to go over some of the things we are working on currently and some of the things that we plan on releasing in the next releases. Or if anyone wants to jump in, that's watching us live, if they have any questions or something, feel free to jump in. If not, we can maybe take a look at the open pull requests that we have, and those that we see going to the next release that will happen on Friday. Also, a side note, while we're talking about the release schedule, we aim to release Daytona 2 times a week if we have features ready. So if we see that we can bump up a feature, so bump up the release. So for example, from 0.18.0 to 0.19.0, we'll generally do that on Tuesdays or on Fridays, with those days in between reserved for patch releases, or for example, some fixes that we introduce, some fixes that we see should be pushed as fast as possible, or similar things like that. I'm just mentioning this so maybe you can expect when we should release new features. So on Tuesdays and Fridays, that's generally the schedule we tend to stick to. Okay, so talking about the open pull releases and what we're working on currently, this is a pull request made by me, which is actually a feature to read server logs while starting the server as daemon. So for example, I can showcase that right here, what I mean. So when you run Daytona server, and let's say with the yes flag immediately enabled, this will start the Daytona server as a background process inside on my machine. And you'll notice that the server is actually starting in the background, but nothing is happening, and the user can't actually see the process that's executing. You can only see, you can only see the what we call the summary image at the end, which says which port Daytona is running on. But this PR aims to actually deliver all the Daytona server logs that happen in between, so you know what's going on. You have more feedback as the user as to what's going on. And this is especially important when, for example, something fails with the Daytona server, then you as the user can see, okay, these are the logs, this is what fails when starting the Daytona server. Maybe I need to, for example, take a look at the breaking changes, or if there's another issue, you can take a look at the issues posted on our repo and then open up a new one if you don't see any relevant information. So that's the feature that will definitely go into our next release, which we again aim to release on Friday. Then we have the server IP configuration. This is a draft PR, which I won't get into. I won't get into the draft PRs because they are draft, right? And we generally don't push draft PRs into our next release. We aim to give ourselves time to review them properly. Then we have another, again, feature made by me. This is direct API and head scale access. This is actually a feature that will greatly improve performance for local projects and workspaces. So when you create a project with Daytona, so with Daytona Create, if you use the local Docker target, it will spin up containers on your local machine. And this PR will improve the performance of that creation process and of the SSH connection with that workspace, in a sense that that project will no longer go to our reverse proxy to go download the binary. It will go directly to your API server that's running locally, and the same with the SSH access as well. So we're hoping to get this pushed on Friday and to improve that performance even more. Then we have the next PR, which is just a fix to the creation flow that fails when repos or projects have spaces. This is also a wider PR that handles any, let's say, illegal characters that might end up in the creation process and just sanitizes them before sending them to our backend. Again, this is made by Tarun, which has been who's been a very active contributor to our project. And then, as you'll see, maybe just take a note of the draft PRs. We have Azure DevOps as a Git provider pending, which we hope to have in the next few weeks. And also self-hosting support for Bitbucket, so Bitbucket server, which generally tends to be used in enterprises. We want to push that as a Git provider as well. And we have a new contributor working on that as we speak. So those are the things that we're working on. But again, if you want to know more about Daytona or the things we're working on, let's say on a wider scale, or maybe what's our roadmap looking for a few months ahead, you can take a look at our projects page. Let me just check the actual link, because we have 3 projects, and some of them are not public. So let me just access the one that's public. You'll see the one that's called roadmap, and here you can see a wide picture of what we're working on and what we have planned in the next couple of months. These are all things that we plan to, some of the things we plan to do ourselves. You'll see we have some assignees to some of the actual issues, but some of these issues are also open for the taking, let's say, and something that we would welcome contributors to take a look at and to contribute to. Again, I want to mention that if you want to contribute to any of the issues that you find on our board, or on our repository, feel free to open a PR or ask questions. We're always open to discussing, or to help you out, get you set up, or help you out with the implementation itself. And that's generally it. That's the, let's say, the outlook of what we have, what we've made in the last let's say week or so, maybe a bit more, and what we have planned in the next release, and the, let's say, general look at our roadmap. If no one here that's watching live has any questions, we can close it off by saying we actually appreciate how our open source project is going. We appreciate all the help that we've been getting, all the help with not only posting issues but also posting PRs. We are very, of course, we're very grateful by the contributors that come along and take a look at the issues, maybe solve some for themselves, or even tackle bounties that we set up for the issues at hand. And we hope we'll continue to get the support, to get more support for Daytona as an open source project. And lastly, again, if you want to have a bit more, let's say, direct conversation with the Daytona team, you can always take a look. You can always join our Slack community channels, and then introduce yourself, maybe take a look at the discussions there, or post some issues about Daytona there if you want, and let's say keep the communication going in a more direct approach. So I guess this is it for the first iteration of Daytona Community Hours. Again, any communication channel you find us on, feel free to tag us there. We'll help you out with anything along the way. And that's it. So thank you for listening to this first iteration, and I hope to see you at the next one. Okay, let's close the recording. Stop.